Will I? Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone, to the Police and Crime panel this afternoon. Can I welcome everyone? And we have some guests with us today, so welcome guests. We have with us Sharon Cadell, who's the Assistant Chief Executive. Have I got that right? Thank you. So welcome, who's on secondment from Cleveland to the Commissioner's office. So welcome, and we look forward to working with you. And also we have a guest in the audience, Councillor Introna. Have I pronounced that correct, Councillor? Thank you. Well, welcome to you as well. So if we could start, we are just awaiting the Commissioner, who I think is just going through some technology issues and I assume for the presentation. Is she? Ah. Okay, well, we'll carry on with doing the parts of the agenda we can do, and hopefully the traffic will ease. If not, we'll have to ask a policeman's assistance perhaps at some point. I don't know. No comment on that. We'll make a start of the agenda anyway. We can probably do some business whilst we're waiting. So if we can move to item 1, the minutes of the last meeting held on the 8th of September. I haven't had anyone raise any particular issues with me, but I'll go through them. Apologies. No, we're glad you made it. We understood you had a traffic problem. We'll just go through them very quickly. Pages 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, 11 of your bundle. If there are no matters arising, can I propose that these are accepted from the chair?
Move that, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. I see nods, so those are accepted. Thank you very much. So if we move to item 2, do we have any apologies, please?
Thank you. We have apologies from both Suma Harding and Mayor Abrahams.
Thank you. That takes us then to the declarations of interest by members and officers. If I could start, please, by declaring that all the independent members have an interest in item 7 and will leave the chamber at the end of the debate on item 6, and the Vice-Chair will take the chair. So we wish to record that on behalf of all the independent members. Thank you. Are there any other declarations of interest? I don't see any. So that takes us to item 4, the work programme, pages 13 to 18 of your bundle. And I think there are two or three things we would want to draw attention to. And just to pick up the first one, which was the conference, the National Conference for Police and Crime Panels, attended by Councillor Khan, Joe Toomey, who's at my side, and myself. Very interesting conference it was. A lot of discussion around, obviously, both the various reports that are out for consultation at the moment, and we were fortunate also to hear from Dr. Rick Muir, who's undertaken the review of the police services, and that was just completed and has yet to be, I think, presented to the powers that be. Joe, anything in particular you would like to raise? We then had to break out in the afternoon into different work streams, so we try not to go to the same things if we can avoid it. But it was a little challenging for them to ensure there was only a limited number of people in each of the rooms, so you didn't get your first choice because obviously they were conscious of trying to ensure COVID rules guided us. Any particular points you want to raise, Joe, at all?
Just to say, really, for members' information, the main item of the day was that presentation from Dr. Muir. A brief overview of the anticipated recommendations are included within the report, just so you can get a bit of a flavour. We're expecting that to be published either later this year or very early in the new year, when there'll be a roadshow round and pressure will really amp upon those recommendations. In terms of other items within the work programme report to draw your attention to, the other kind of review item is the Home Office review of police and crime commissioners, and I believe the Commissioner may also be talking about this later. Just to say, the feedback from that conference was that the ambition was still for a report to be published in November. As yet, I've not had sight of anything it may have passed me by, but hopefully, again, the Commissioner will be able to fill us in more on that.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on the work programme? Mr Bob Vaughan-Newton, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was particularly happy to be able to visit the new custody suite a couple of days before it actually opened. And I was so impressed with the planning that had gone into that new facility in terms of staff safety. The furthest point from the central hub is about 10 seconds dash, I think. So that's a fantastic help if anybody gets into any difficulty, to know that their colleagues can be with them almost immediately. The thought that had gone into dealing with people such as autistic people, in terms of lighting and colour schemes and decoration on walls and so on and so forth. That was brilliant, and it showed that a great deal of consultation had taken place. And I was also delighted that it came in under budget. And that's quite a spectacular thing to achieve in any kind of public service construction work. Maybe it helped that the project manager was an inspector who had a background in construction, so he knew the buttons to press. I was also very impressed with the green credentials of the facility. And I understand that it's receiving a lot of national attention, and quite right too. Thank you very much for enabling the visit.
Thank you. Thank you. I think those words have been echoed by a number of people who were able to participate and have that preview arrangement put on for them. And so we thank you for that, and thank the Chief Constable and his team. Did you want to make any comment about the work programme for the future? I don't know if we've got I think a date for the VDU. Yeah.
We have, yes. Thank you for reminding me. At the last meeting, the panel spoke about wanting to receive a presentation from the Violence Reduction Unit. Really pleased to say we've been in touch with them and agreed that they will come to speak to you all on the 28th of March. So that's the big one there. If anyone's got any further suggestions for items to include, please feel free to shout.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Legatt, thank you. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair. So I went to the conference and I went to one of the workshops around Crime Stoppers. So I'd really like to see something here, looking at how we work with Crime Stoppers, or how do we share that kind of information or gather that intel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. I've seen nods here that that's something that I think we can probably, hopefully, weave into our programme. Thank you for that. If there's anything else on the report, it's here, obviously, for people to note. So if the... Thank you. Go back there, haven't I? Thank you. So there are two recommendations. Oh, thank you. Councillor Greaves, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Would it be appropriate at this point in the meeting to look at future work programme issues at all? Okay. There's two or three that I would think it to be interesting to committee to put forward. One is, I understand that the Police and Crime Commissioner has made a number of changes to the office and support arrangements since taking office. In the interest of value for money, I propose a report at the next meeting detailing staffing and revenue budget changes for the office of the Police and Crime Commissioner. That's one. The second one is Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner. The Police and Crime Commission has stated that the savings from the abolition of the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner post has been redirected to the frontline policing. I propose a report at the next meeting detailing how that money has been redirected into the front line, which I think we'd all find quite interesting and be an advantage to us all. The next one is the Newark Police Station. The retention of the Newark Police Station was the subject of a clear difference in opinion between the Police Crime Commissioner and the Chief Constable. I propose a specific report on the decision-making process behind the retention of the Newark Police Station, which stands half empty. I want to know why taxpayers' money continues to be spent on business rates for half-empty buildings and how this presents value for money to the local people. And finally, Chair, our focus should be tackling crime. But the new Police and Crime Commissioner appears to be followed around at the public events by a camera crew to create glossy, self-promotional videos. In the interest of value for money, I propose a specific report at the next meeting to consider how much taxpayers' money is now being spent on spin. The new Police and Crime Commissioner at this taxpayer's expense. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I wasn't expecting quite such a long list, but thank you, Councillor Greaves.
It's all good stuff, Chair.
Thank you. Let me just try to get some order into the things you've raised. Thank you. In terms of Crime Stoppers, that's been accepted as something to go on the work programme, I think, over the future months. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. In terms of you're asking for a report on the offices and value for money and revenue. Clearly, the running of the office is entirely at the discretion of the Police and Crime Commissioner. It's their sole preserve. Whether they are able to furnish you with the sort of information is very much over to the Commissioner. And I think in terms of asking for something around the savings being diverted to the frontline policing, again, perhaps for the next meeting, that may be something that we're not expecting you at the top to be able to articulate that perhaps this afternoon, unless you've got that at your fingertips. In terms of the Newark Police Station, I think there may be other questions that might come forward on that, Councillor Greaves, because actually it is in today's papers, so there may be more added to that, Commissioner, that may help in terms of whether that's coming at another date or whether, in fact, we address that issues and people are satisfied this afternoon remains to be seen. I think in terms of, again, the publicity, perhaps I'll leave that down to the Commissioner. Certainly the previous Commissioner also had quite a high profile in publicity terms. And again, I think that's down to the Commissioner to look at the budgets one against the other and come to some... We're not in a position to be judgmental about that. It is your prerogative. I think it's correct. I look at my learned advisors here.
Rather than separate reports, could they go on the update from the Commissioner, and the next meeting will also be the budget meeting?
Okay.
So
Thank you. The advice that I've just been given, which sounds pretty sensible, is maybe all of these aspects could be woven into your next report, Commissioner, which also is at the time of year when we look at budgets and start to think about the budgetary issues. There's one or two things you may want to separate out, but I'll leave that up to you. But do you want to comment, Commissioner, before we close this down?
Thank you. I think your recommendations there, Chair, are sensible, and some of the things will be spoken about as we go through the agenda.
And if they're not, perhaps we can log them for your forthcoming report at the next meeting.
Happy to, thank you.
Does that answer, Councillor Greaves, things you've raised?
Yes, Chair. Yeah, that's fine. If all the committee agrees on that, that's fine. Yeah.
The The recommendations on the work programme is that we've added an item to the September 22 in terms of the implementation of the new custody suite, and that the work programme be updated in line with any member suggestions, which we've done today in terms of, I know you've got Crime Stoppers in your plan, but it may be that something more specific may be helpful for the panel. Anyone against those recommendations? Everyone in favour? And those motions are carried. Thank you. Takes us then to item 5, the Police and Crime Plan, which you've got for information, pages 21 to 25. Thank you, Commissioner, for giving us advance copy of your plan, which presumably is out for consultation in far and wide. Yes. Not yet. Okay. So we are the privileged few to start with. Thank you very much. I understand you're doing a small presentation on your plan. We're okay for time at the moment, but I'm sure there will be questions. So if I ask you to speed up, I'm not being rude. It's because we will want time for questioning. Thank you.
Yeah. It will be a whistle-stopped tour through the presentation, because I do want to make sure we've got plenty of time for questions. It's 9 years ago today since there was the first Police and Crime Commissioner elections, so it feels a good anniversary to launch my plan. Now, this is very much a consultation draft. What you're seeing here is a presentation based on it. There's actually a much bigger document that will be on the website this month. Well, it'll be this week, and that will be out for consultation for a month. So I'm really pleased to launch it. It's going to set the strategic direction for policing and victim services and crime reduction over the next 4 years. It'll direct how I allocate my resources to the police, partner agencies and communities during my term. And I really would value and welcome your scrutiny on it and feedback too. Now, the plan is a culmination of a lot of hard work that's been undertaken since May this year, listening to communities and stakeholders over the issues that matter most to them. And perhaps responding to Councillor Kevin Greaves, I want to be very visible. I want the people to know that I'm here to listen to them, and I call it community engagement rather than publicity when I'm out and about. Because that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to engage with the community. What I want to look at with our plan going forward is reviewing evidence of how we're performing and what is the biggest risk and threats to local communities, tracking new developments in terms of policy and legislation, and of course exploring funding opportunities. So this gives you bit of a background, but actually I want you to be confident of the methodology around why we put the police and crime plan together this way, and I'd just like to briefly hand over to Dan Howitt to do this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. So if you could just turn to the next slide. Thank you. Yeah, so this slide isn't actually in your pack, so apologies for that. But it really just gives you an overview of the broader sources of information that have been used. So I've been supporting the Commissioner over recent months in terms of bringing a lot of this information together, either information that's required on a statutory basis or as part of good practice, and providing this information to the Commissioner to enable her to kind of develop and shape her plan. So this gives you a brief overview of some of those sources, really. Which include, obviously, the views of local residents and communities. This is a statutory requirement of the Act that engage local people in developing the police and crime plan priorities. You'll see in the paper that a lot of the extensive work that's been undertaken as part of that programme of engagement over the last 3 months. With sessions in every local authority area, listening to concerns of communities and discussing neighbourhood priorities. If we could just go to the next slide, sorry, Jane. What this shows you really is some of the feedback that we've had from residents about sort of their priorities for their area and neighbourhood. Racing and reckless driving and speeding being kind of the two of the most prevalent community concerns across Nottinghamshire. But I think what this slide tries to show you really is that those priorities vary significantly by neighbourhood, by area. So drug use and dealing in Mansfield and Ashfield, for example, is significantly higher community concern than other areas of the force. Likewise, in the city, we see high levels of concern about hate crime, domestic abuse and sexual offences and so on. So part of the challenge really for the Commissioner has been kind of appreciating that not a one-size-fits-all applies in developing the plan, and it's about understanding those local issues and concerns alongside some of the issues that we know are impacting most significantly on communities but might not feature highly on the public's radar. So if we just go to the next slide, sorry, Joe. Which include areas such as sexual offences, rape, violence with injury, domestic abuse and burglary. So what this chart shows you here is the levels of crime harm experienced by communities. So it's not a volume count of offences, but it's looking at the weighting of crime harm and the issues that are highlighted on the threat assessments of our key partners in local authorities, and sort of the police strategic assessment, and of course our own police and crime needs assessment that we conduct on an annual basis. Thank you. Okay, is that? Sorry, yeah. If we just go to the next slide, if we can. There we go. Yeah. Taking account of some of those sort of rounded issues and concerns, the Commission has also held engagement events with key partners in the violence against women and girls sector, victim service providers, serious violence reduction partners, health and wellbeing boards, criminal justice partners, listening to their issues and their concerns, which have all sort of been fed into the plan. Some of the areas that have been highlighted there, compounded by the coronavirus pandemic, are obviously the rise in experience of cyber and online crime over the last year, the escalation in the complexity and the demand that service providers are experiencing, particularly in relation to mental health, and of course some of the increased pressures on service providers, particularly relating to the court's backlog as a result of the lockdown and social distancing measures, and the impact that's having on victims' experience of the criminal justice system, which has been echoed by many partners as part of the consultation. And just finally, that the plan obviously also takes into account at a national level, things like the Beating Crime Plan, the various new areas of legislation, the Online Safety Bill, Domestic Abuse Act, and the various sort of other kind of national legislative and policy changes that are either recently impacting on our services or are likely to over the coming years. So again, I could go into a lot of detail on these points, but I know the Commissioner is keen to take you through sort of the detail of the plan itself.
Can I just ask a question, Commissioner and Dan? I obviously haven't seen those before. Is it your intention to circulate to members after the meeting? Because it was difficult for me in here to even see them. So it's very difficult for us to ask you any questions about that particular aspect of the plan. Yes. Yeah, but we're very happy to circulate afterwards.
Thank you. So, turning to the draft plan itself, it has to be by its very nature strategic. There's going to be a much more operational and tactical detail plan to follow as part of the annual delivery plan. But in essence, the plan sets out my 3 overarching priorities, aims and objectives for my term in office. So based on preventing, responding, supporting. My passion is here, I mentioned it before, preventing is my #1 priority. It's the area that our residents and partners feel most strongly about. It's the heart of our public health approach to tackling serious violence. We can reduce crime, save lives, save money, and make a real difference to our communities. So next slide, please. So I'm not going to read it all out, but just a few things that are really important here is the working in partnership to make our streets, towns, and cities safer. This place-based crime prevention in neighbourhoods. We're already doing a lot of it here, having secured £2.8 million worth of Home Office Safer Street funding this year alone. But I really want to build on this, more target hardening, environmental crime prevention in particular. The budget will follow that. Secondly, steering young people away from crime and harm. I'm delighted that we've got the Violence Reduction Unit coming here in March because they're doing some amazing work and I want to do even more of that. This is about protecting and diverting young people away from crime. And these are vulnerable young people who can end up as victims or as perpetrators. And that includes children in care. I spoke with some young people recently who had help through the Violence Reduction Unit, and they said something which I thought was really telling. They said, hurt people hurt people. We need to remember that. Education and work to change attitudes and behaviour. I've got a real passion to work on violence against women and girls. And preventing that happening and having education in all primary schools about healthy relationships, about making good choices, so people understand what a coercive or controlling relationship is vital. Improving partnership approach to reoffending. Focusing on tertiary prevention. I think we all know, so many people are just in that wheel of offending and reoffending. I want to look at and address those factors that drive people to reoffend and make sure that we're effectively tackling, particularly in the areas of substance misuse and mental health. I've got £2.6 million for local drug treatment services over the next 4 years. And tagging is going to be part of that plan as well. So moving on to my second priority, please. So, responding efficiency, I can't say the word, efficiently. I can usually talk. I'm a little nervous today, you have to bear with me. We've got to make the money work, and we've got to make sure that we deliver the policing that people need. So, to start with, enabling our officers to be visible, accessible, and responding to community needs. I want to make sure that Nottinghamshire gets its fair share of resources and that we are using it efficiently. Somebody else's teeth in today, apologise. I know. I do. The chief will testament that I usually say that word very effectively in a lot, don't I? Absolutely. And I'm really passionate to make sure that we invest in visible frontline policing. I want to ensure that we're maintaining good performance in terms of our call handling and response time. And as you know, we've got the uplift of our police officers, so we can have more police to make our streets safer. And I'm delighted that we're already at 2275 and that the Chief is working really hard. So by March 31st next year, we'll actually have our full uplift of 2,381. So that's a year early. So that's really exciting. Next, improving our capacity to police the digital beat. We've spoken about the physical beat and the digital beat, and we know that unfortunately criminals have been very adaptive and the crimes committed or facilitated online are increasing. So we're working together to expand our digital media investigation team and to secure better outcomes for victims of online crime. Understanding and responding to issues of greatest community concern. We know from listening to local communities that issues affecting local residents can vary significantly by area, and that's what that slide shows, and we'll give you more details on that. But one of the things that was common was antisocial behaviour, and I want to establish an antisocial behaviour task force to help increase confidence and response to ASB. And lastly, creating a hostile environment for serious and organised crime. This element of my plan focuses on the serious and organised criminals that are causing greatest harm to our community. And I'm really keen to get as much ANPR in as possible. Next slide, thank you. Now, this is a really interesting one for me because I could have done the easy, popular thing here. Out and about, rural crime has been mentioned to me so much. Before I became Police and Crime Commissioner, I'd got a plan about what to do with this. I thought we need a rural crime team. That's what other places have. But actually, I could have pulled some money out of the reserves and which I don't really want to do, but pulled some money out of reserves and formed a rural crime team, Sergeant and Six. But it would not have tackled what we need to do here. It would have been a popular thing to do. I could have had a great picture. I could have launched a rural crime team, but it wouldn't have addressed the issue or got the confidence in the rural communities that we need. So what I want to do is see our whole response to rural crime improving. We've now got a new rural crime lead in Nottinghamshire, a very impressive Chief Inspector Heather Sutton. And we've got 25 wildlife trained officers. And I already know that our response to rural crime is improving, but there's more to do, and I want to be measuring what we're doing. And actually, like we've talked about neighbourhoods needing the right policing for them, our rural areas do too. So there needs to be better training in our control room to understand that actually, if it's a trespasser in a rural area, it could be a prerequisite to scoping something out for some serious acquisitive crime. We're looking at rural crime, mainstreaming it and making sure we have the right response to it. Next one. Third priority is to ensure that we have a strong and really resilient, reachable network to support our victims of crime. So improving the service we offer to victims of crime, particularly around VAUG, that's violence against women and girls. It remains an important priority for me, and I'm really committed to working with our local authorities and health partners. We've got some really good third sector organisations in this area too, but I think there's more to do. I'm really keen that we improve the victims' experience of the criminal justice service. We've spoke about the criminal justice service in here before. There hasn't been a local criminal justice assurance board before. We're starting one. We have our first meeting on the 13th of December. Next, exposing hidden harms and safeguarding vulnerable people. It's part of the national ambition of the Beating Crime Plan and something I wholeheartedly support. And I'll be working with partner agencies, looking at slavery, exploitation. There's a lot of stuff happening out there which most people don't know about, but it's vulnerable people who need help. And finally, and this fits with Crime Stoppers actually, counts. Oh, we must tell her, I did mention it. Thank you. But it's Crime Stoppers. This is supporting and enabling communities to help themselves. And I'll be providing funding and helping develop and sustain community-led initiatives there. Okay, next slide. So behind that, there has to be the money. Now, I've lobbied, as many of us have, for a 3-year funding settlement. Now, this will make a huge difference. We can really plan with more certainty. So, talking about we've talked before about how short-term funding is so hard to plan. I'm really keen, wherever we can, that we do longer funding. And I'm also really interested when it comes to the preset. We've got a 3-year funding settlement for the police. Is it worth looking at a 3-year preset conversation? Would that give families and our partners more stability? Would they be able to plan their budget better if they knew what was coming over the next 3 years? So I'd be really interested in exploring that with you when we come to our preset chat. Thank you. And finally, but it's really important, I obviously have to talk about equality objectives to make sure everything's fair. There's a lot more there. But, so it's an ambitious plan, unapologetically tough on crime, and has the needs of victims and communities at our heart. It's my vision, by the end of the term, there's going to be fewer victims, greater trust and confidence in the police and criminal justice service, and a stronger, more resilient network of services supporting victims to cope from and recover from harm. And I'm really happy to ask questions, as long as you don't ask me to say efficiently again.
I've got Councillor Carlton. Is that what you're saying? Councillor Greaves, I didn't catch what you were saying to me. I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. Well, I've got Councillor Woodings. I'll then have you then... right, let me make a quick note. Thank you. Councillor Woodings.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for sharing with us in advance your new draft police and crime plan. I just want to start by talking about the violence against women and girls policy. And I think it's fantastic that you've highlighted the healthy relationships education that takes place in schools, because prevention is key here. And I don't know if you've managed to visit Equation yet to actually deliver some of that training, but it's absolutely fantastic, age appropriate, and will really hopefully get to the root of tackling violence against women and girls, you know, albeit at the moment we're seeing quite a lot of stories in Nottingham and nationally as well about violence against women. So I wanted to ask you, in light of the conviction of Wayne Cousins for the murder of Sarah Everard, what assurance have you sought from the Chief Constable about the culture in Nottinghamshire Police Force? And I was really proud that Nottinghamshire was the first force in the country to say that it would record misogyny as a hate crime. And I wonder also if you've reconsidered actually sort of re-promoting that out. I've not seen a great deal come out about it, but of course it's all been about COVID over the last 18 months. But now violence against women and girls has really come to the fore. And I do wonder if it is time to start re-promoting that misogyny is recorded as a hate crime in Nottinghamshire. And the fact that the police do, even though it's not a specific crime, the police do actually take action over it as well. Thank you. Oh, I did have another question as well, Chair, but do you want me to answer that one first?
If we could, please, and I've got several people waiting, if I could come back to you.
Come back to me, absolutely, no problem.
I thought there were three questions there, Councillor Linda. Firstly, yeah, absolutely.
It's misogyny and misandry, because there are things that happen to men that get the same thing. So it's the hate crime should go both ways.
I was specifically talking about the Nottinghamshire Police Initiative.
Thank you. I have been to see the fantastic partner Equation, and they've actually just got the Queen's Award, actually, for some of the amazing work they do. We do have a violence against women strategy, but we are looking to build on that, and we're working with the force, and Sharon Cadell is going to... I might let you say a few words about that, actually, because you are taking the lead on that. Yeah, if that's okay.
So you're absolutely right in terms of violence against women and girls being very much at the forefront of the nation's consciousness, particularly in relation to the policing response. But we know of old, for those of us who've been working in this arena for a long time, that our efforts can only work if we do that in partnership. So we have got a VOG strategy. All strategies should be kept iterative in terms of being able to take on new and emerging features in the local landscape and certainly in the national landscape as well. So we have got one, but we are just in the process of engaging with partners and starting to update that.
Okay. And then two other things. There was the following Sarah Everard and the confidence in the police, which if I hand over to you for this one, because I have been asking lots of questions here.
Yeah, clearly, from our perspective, it's an absolute priority. Everybody was disgusted with what's happened. I'm working on some stuff nationally with Martin Hewitt and also with Maggie Blythe on the National Goal Group in response to it. And in relation to sort of local assurance, we have a really tight method of assessing risk, and taking positive action against anybody who falls below the standard which contained within the Code of Ethics, and that includes police officers and police staff. And with regards to investigations, they are conducted thoroughly, expeditiously, and individuals are held to account. And in our force and in other forces, but particularly on a local basis, individuals have lost their jobs as a result of such failings in terms of their conduct against the Code of Ethics and the Code of Conduct. The broader thing around training, we've released, because of my national role, a raft of iterative training to every member of the organisation and reminded them of their responsibilities. And then on top of that, I think our track record stands scrutiny quite healthily, as you've said, because whilst there aren't a huge volume of reports of misogyny, what we do is we increase confidence of women to report, and that's the most important thing, because usually when that's happened, we detect other offences on the back of it and can hold people to account through the criminal justice system. So there's the training, there's a very clear declaratory effect. I've got my national work, and on a local basis, it's a huge priority and it's treated very seriously.
Okay. And with regard to misogyny as a hate crime, Nottinghamshire are thought of really well across the country because of that. And actually, there's an event with Association of Police and Crime Commissioners with chiefs this week. So I've actually got a report together, and I know all the numbers. And whilst it's a relatively low number, it's 62 total crimes and incidents last year. I'm really happy it's there because it gives women the confidence to know that we're really taking this seriously. And I'm actually, once we're just finishing the report off, but it'd be something the panel will be happy to receive the report once it's finished. It makes really interesting reading of the trends and the background around it.
Thank you. I've got Mr Vaughan Newton, then Councillor Inglis, and then Councillor Ellis in that order. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. There's reference on page 21 of the pack to a violence reduction stakeholder event, and partners were calling for greater investment in mental health provision in the context of partnership working. So that's highlighted the need for that, greater focus on the need of care leavers across the city and county. Now, we recognise that these areas are not necessarily the responsibility of the police, and we're very aware of the good work that the police have done, police response officers double crewed with mental health professionals, and the enormous reduction that there has been in the use of the Section 136 power to detain people who are kicking off in a public place. Very few of people are now finding themselves in a police cell. There are much more appropriate places. Can you please tell the panel how you see your role fitting in and how it's influencing the strategic direction in your police and crime plan? Oh, and one other thing. I've seen several times Nottinghamshire Police and Crime Plan 2021 to 25. Now, my understanding was that your term would be until 24.
It is still my understanding that it'll be till 24 as well. But having checked with Dan said the rules were you did it for 4 years.
The legal, the statutory requirement is for the plan to run to the end of the next PC. Well, the election in which the next PCC, the next PCC election effectively is to cover that changeover period. So, when elections take place in 2024, the next PCC will need to have their plan in place by March 2025 at the latest. So the plan is required to run by default into that period. Although, of course, it will be. A new plan will be issued before then, but that's the statutory requirement.
And also there'll be the deliverables plan and the reports every year. This is just a strategic direction. Thank you for mentioning mental health. It's really important. And I'm not just going to name drop, but I was chewing Sajid Javid's, can't say words, Sajid's, that'll do, ear off last Friday because of this. Because what I want our police officers to be able to do is to absolutely look after vulnerable and keep people safe. But I want them to be getting the badders. I don't want them to be always having to pick up when other services have let people down. And I'm afraid that there's been too much of that, hasn't there? So we need mental health and to step up more. So we don't always, as a police service, have to pick up. So those conversations are ongoing. Would you like to add anything, Chief?
Just to say that we're committed and we've put those additional resource in, Bob, and absolutely we've had hardly any 136s, and that's good. So the most appropriate location they're taken to, if that's a carer, a secure unit, but the nurse is invaluable in accessing the right medical data so we can get to the right outcome quickly.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I've got Councillor Inglis, Councillor Ellis, and then Councillor Greaves. Councillor Inglis, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Hi. Yeah, a couple of points. Yeah, great report. Thank you very much. It's nice to see some development in the key areas that are needed. However, I don't have a Mr. Grumpy mug at home for nothing. Just go back to our town and parish forum that you were at a couple of weeks ago, Caroline, where you said, to quote you, you pay high rates and need visual policing, not just in market towns and the city. Okay, just looking back to your priority 1, preventing crime and protecting people from harm. Your strapline there is to make our streets, towns and cities safer. There's no mention there of villages and country lanes. So I'd like that included.
Yeah, thank you. That's very, that's a good shout. That's fair.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yes, sort of my area is quite rural. I've got my rural head on today. So I was really excited and looking forward to the report to how you're going to address the rural crime. I'd like to say I'm a bit disappointed to what the offer is. You know, so we've got a chief inspector in place and 25 trained officers now. I get a lot of communication from our rural community. I've had 2 conversations this morning. And just looking at the key words through this, it's improve. You know, each strapline here is improve, 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 improve. That's not tangible, really. You know, we can have one meeting and we've improved on last year. You know, I really want to take something back to our community to say, this is the offer on the table. This is what we're going to do now. And I don't feel it's there. You know, you've alluded to not having a rural crime team. You know, with Border Leicestershire that I've got one that are quite good from what I'm hearing. So I'm a little bit disappointed. I know your election material was all rural crime. I don't think you're delivering on that. So I do hope you go back and revisit to look at what the rural community is asking for. There's the perception now that report anything, it doesn't get dealt with, it's glanced over. That's perhaps not the case to the reported crimes, but a lot of stuff is not getting reported because the farmers are saying we haven't got time to do it, and when we do, nobody's bothered. And to quote one farmer, at a previous police meeting, he just said, the officer says, well, you're insured, aren't you? Which was not the right feedback, and that's negative to the farming community now. You know, we had one theft overnight a couple of months ago. £170,000 worth of kit was stolen over a few farms. We've got 167 square miles in Rushcliffe. A lot of that's community, rural community. So I really hope we've got something I can take back and say, look, this is what's happening now, and you're delivering to your promises.
Rob, you need to trust me here, because actually just having a little small rural crime team which I could show off about and say was delivering wouldn't actually make that much difference. What I want to do is change how Nottinghamshire Police deal with rural crime completely. I mean, that £175,000 worth of kit, that's serious acquisitive crime. That's why you need that's why you need, you know, full response on that. And I want Nottinghamshire Police to deal with rural crime differently and not have a little tokenistic rural crime team that just doesn't even scratch the surface. Could you come here?
Yeah, I think the point's well made. Operationally, clearly, there are decisions that are made with regards to deployment, but those decisions are based on threat, harm and risk, and that would be one of the jobs that we would want to do some more work on. You know, £175,000 is a big amount of money. I really don't like any of that comment about you're insured. I really don't. And I completely agree with regards to the sort of, you know, the approach needs to be one wherever you live, not just in rural or urban communities. But the way that we police across all the neighbourhoods. Neighbourhood priorities are agreed locally with partners, and we try and respond to those needs accordingly. And they will differ between, you know, Rushcliffe and Hyson Green, won't they? Quite rightly. And that's the way I try and deliver the service fairly, equitably, but also in line with threat, harm and risk, which is operationally my decision.
Just add something here, because I want to be measuring it. So I want to have some deliverables about what we can do better for our rural community, which is why, as you know, backing up this plan, I want to improve processes for recording and reporting. There's no specific rural crimes, farm machinery theft, fuel theft, fly tipping, poaching, livestock offences and equine crime. I want to make sure we tighten up on how we're recording this, so we really understand how big the picture is in our rural areas. And also, I've got a real pledge. You know, you said the farmer said he didn't want to wait; he's too busy to report. We need these. We need to have them reported, although we don't know they're there. So it's really important so we have a true picture, and to build the confidence up. And I will be measuring during my tenure that we do build the confidence up in our rural communities, and we do something that's really meaningful, not just something that's tokenistic. It would have been really easy for me to just pay for a rural crime team and shout about it. It's not the right thing to do. We need to change our whole approach to how we deal with crime in rural areas.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think it's that confidence the community need, is that it is worthwhile them reporting something, and it's under-reported at the moment, and I think that's a lot of the problem, is you look at the pins on the map, and there's nothing showing because it's not being reported when it is happening out there. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Inglis. I've got Councillor Ellis, Councillor Greaves, Councillor McRae and Councillor Khan in that order. Councillor Ellis, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Of course, the panel has a statutory duty to respond to the police and crime panel. So it's not just questions; we've got comments. I think there's obviously a lot in the plan that the panel would agree with. I think I'd welcome the focus on prevention. Didn't somebody once say something about being tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime? And I think the Commission's pointed out that it's 9 years, we've had Commissioners for 9 years, and during most of that time, the government's actively undermined Commissioners with their austerity policies. So other policies have actually worked against what we've been trying to do. I think there are many parts of the plan where the partnership is stressed, which I think is appropriate, and I think credit needs to be given to Nottinghamshire Police for their efforts in working in partnership with other agencies, which I'm not sure is the same across the country as a whole. There's several points at which funding is mentioned. You actually had a slide on there about funding. Be interested how much of this is new funding and how much is recycling, specifically looking at the 100,000 crime prevention fund and the 400,000 from the late night levy. You know, is this new funding or has it been recycled? Page 35, you talk about investing £1.5 million in custody-based diversion. That seems to me to be a contradiction in terms. I always thought diversion was an alternative to custody. You know, can you elaborate on how you see that working? Page 36, you talk about the risks of hate crime and ASB, and I just wonder whether that rolls two disparate things together and ends up under stating the importance of hate crime. And in there, I would include misogyny in that, obviously. Priority 2 talks about local needs and includes the digital beat in that. Isn't the digital? I thought the priority was about neighbourhood policing. Isn't the digital beat more national and international? Page 42, you talk about setting up a local criminal justice assurance board, which I think the panel would welcome, and just hope you get more support from the criminal justice agencies than we did. Good. And coming back to the rural crime issue, I mean, obviously everybody deserves to be safe, whether they're in a town, a city, or in a rural lane. How do you see rural crime relating to threat, risk, and harm? And will you be taking resources from the urban areas to deploy into rural areas? Stuff to be going on with, I think.
Thank you very much for those comments, Councillor Ellis. There's loads there, but one of them I think you'd be interested in hearing more about is the funding that we secured for the. Can you mention this, Kevin? We talked about it earlier. This is the violence reduction unit.
I'll speak up if you can't hear me, but oh, there you go. So this is money that's been secured this year for the Youth Endowment Fund. So the Home Office released a big pot of money to a national organisation to distribute. So led by the Commissioner, working with the VRU and with partners. So it's kind of very much a city and county cooperation. They've been successful in being awarded 1.46 million over a 2.5-year period. So this money is to, once you've got young people in custody, not all young people that have been in custody, been arrested, will be charged and then up before the courts, is to make sure, Councillor Ellis, they don't come back. So that's doing wraparound services, mentoring, work around speech and language, and we anticipate about 753 children over a 2.5-year period. And I think this links into the performance item about first-time entrants. Still very challenging in the city, some improvements in the county, but doing some work at the front end, and we've never had this resource before. So 600 bids were put into the Youth Endowment Fund. We're one of 10 nationally that has received this money. And that is definitely new money. And speech and language, quite exciting. That's an area that's kind of in terms of causes around and tackling the causes of crime. Is an area particularly, and mentoring will last around 9 to 12 months or a year. So really positive stuff for the city, at the new Bridewell, and in terms of the Mansfield Custody Suite as well.
I think there was another specific that you were looking to the Chief Constable to come in on in answer to Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. It's very clear operationally, it's up to the Chief Constable where things go.
Yes, so you asked about moving resources. Operationally, it's a layered response, so wherever the need's greatest, and that's a local decision.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. I've got Councillor Greaves, Councillor McRae, Councillor Carr, Councillor Camilleri and Councillor Helen Smith. So we'll keep working through. Councillor Greaves, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Commissioner, when you was elected, you made a promise in Worksop to deliver a proper police station. You didn't. You didn't.
We do have a police station in Worksop.
It's in the council offices.
Yeah,
now.
it's a police station.
Right. So there's no hope for a new police station in Worksop, because I couldn't see it in the plan, obviously. So you're saying you never made that promise?
I promised to review all estates, which I will still be doing. But
Okay.
I can assure you I never promised to put a proper police station in Worksop, because we do have a police station in Worksop.
Okay. Well, thank you. Can I go on to my next question, Chair? Yeah. Well, because that answer were so short. Yeah. Well, it's.
I promised to bring funding to Worksop, and I've absolutely delivered on that. You've got £432,000 extra money for safer streets in Worksop, which is going to make a massive difference to Worksop. You've got more police officers in Worksop than you had before.
Well, that's just what my next question, Chair. That one. So, can you just remind me? I might have missed it. How many? Your objective to recruit police officers over the next 4 years, how many are you thinking to be able to recruit in Worksop? You said you were going to put more officers on Or you didn't say that neither?
No, I said there've been more officers in workshop, and there has been.
Yeah, but yeah. Okay. So, is that new boots on the street, or is that overtime boots?
That's using Operation Uplift.
That's new officers.
You have more officers in workshop, and you also have the £432,000 of Strafe for Streets funding.
Just remind me how many police officers that's equated to.
It's working now. I can't give you the precise figures, but I will come back to the precise figures. But there's definitely, just during every one of the last 3 years, there's been more each year as the teams have grown.
Okay. So to bring us back up to, I mean, obviously the precept is going up, obviously year by year. So what would be the precept to bring us up to pre-austerity levels? How much would it cost to bring us up to pre-austerity levels and the amount of police? Or is that not a question?
I think what you're getting at is, say, 2009, 2010, the force was roughly a head count of around 2,500 cops. It didn't actually physically get there, but I think that was the budgeted establishment. So in answer to your question, when we will have done Uplift a year early at the end of this financial year, we will be at 2381. So we will still be under the larger number that we were pre-austerity. That's the first bit. And the second sort of angle to the question, I think, probably it would be helpful if I said it would really depend on how much grant we get from government. So if that changes, that would change the answer to your question, sort of, if you see what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor McRae next. Thank you.
Yeah, right. I just wanted to say thank you for coming to the walk against knife crime in Stapleford the other week as well, and please pass on thanks to the officers that came. It was really kind of you all. Right. So that was an easy one. Right. When the Commissioner has attended meetings of the panel, the importance of public consultation in identifying policing and crime priorities has been partially emphasised. Recent reports in the local media have referred to the Commissioner's engagement events and the number of attendees present. So please can you tell the panel the number of members of the public with whom you have actively engaged as part of your community engagement programme? And thank you for inviting me to be on one of them as well.
Thank you, Councillor McRae, and thank you for coming and hosting it with me. I absolutely want to do the public engagement during the consultation for to start putting the plan together. It's been 14,000 people that have actually watched, and sorry, is it 12,500 people have watched the online streaming that we've done. And more people have attended and been involved with the survey as well. I have rejigged how I'm doing stuff. When I started, I went out and put my own event on. I thought people would turn up. I'd live stream it too. Not that many people came, whether it's just or COVID or rainy nights. So actually, to save resources, I then changed how I'm doing it. I now did a whole. For every neighbourhood, I did an event and I live stream them. But also, I think there's a real benefit to going where events actually are happening. For example, last week I went out to I'm living the dream, the machine show in Newark. I know, who knew? But loads of the rural community were there, so I did an event where they were, but we live streamed it too. So I am going to continue to experiment and do as many events as I can, but I'll do it carefully to make sure we engage.
Yeah. So how many? I don't normally need a mic. How many of those people have actively participated in the consultations and not just engaged through views, clicks, shares, and likes?
Was over. Yeah, we've had 1,400 responses to the survey. Yeah, but there's been focus groups on this as well. It's not just been the live streaming. Yeah, and hopefully you'll see from the methodology behind how we put this plan together. yes, I want to engage with the public. I want people to tell me what they view, but we need the evidence behind it too.
Thank you very much. Thank you. If we can move on to Councillor Khan. Thank you. Thank you for waiting.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I've just got a few questions. So to start off with, the 3 slides that haven't been shared with us when you put them up, you spoke about drugs and that kind of perception in Newark. So I just want to know, is that actually what communities perceive to be the issues, or is that backed by data? So it's what communities think, but it's the data backs it up. That's the first point. Second one was on your priority 3, supporting victims, survivors and communities. It says on there, support the increased use of police-led prosecutions and work with police and partners to improve the quality and availability of evidence at first hearings, such as CCTV and body-worn video footage. Just on the part of CCTV, so does the Commissioner expect new funding to help achieve this aspiration? Because if you're relying on local authorities, budgets are already stretched, so I don't know how that would work. So that's one, and that's a different point. And then continuing on priority 3, it talks about increase involvement in volunteering, police cadets and special constabulary, whatever, and provide funding to support the development and maintenance of community groups that help to support the delivery of your police and crime plans, such as community speed watch, neighbourhood watch. So before you put this aspiration into the plan, did you actually speak to the Chief Constable? Because one of the issues I'm getting from a lot of neighbourhoods within the city is there used to be speed watch done by Neighbourhood Watch, and unfortunately they had to be stopped because the police insurance doesn't cover this. So my point was, I welcome this, but how realistic is this? And because speeding is one of the biggest issues that we've got within the city, and I can see by your consultation that's one of the things that kept coming up. And then just last point, just on what one of the councillors said, is about your consultation events. So it's good that you've adapted them, because I attended one, and and it was good, but unfortunately it would be better if more residents had attended. But I'd just like to know how many have been held in the city, because I was invited to one of them, but it would just be good to see how many were held for a population over 332,000. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I whistle through those, I've got 4 questions. Okay. First, the data. Do you want to touch on the data?
Yeah, let's cover that now.
Okay.
Yeah, so the slide that we showed there was based on it's the police and crime survey that we've been running since 2017, actually. It's a really robust survey that goes out to residents, has around 4,300 responses a year, and it's represented by age, gender, ethnicity, employment status, and at community safety partnership level. So it's a really, really robust process. And the question that we ask residents is, what issues, if any, would you like to see the police and other agencies do more to tackle in your area? Now, I think around 2 years ago, drug use and dealing came out as the top issue. Sort of quarter on quarter. We do it as part of a quarterly rolling basis. That's concern about drug use and dealing in the areas is fallen quite markedly over recent years. We think it's linked to the positive kind of proactive work of Operation Reacher. So now racing and reckless driving and speeding remain the 2 most sort of prevalent issues at a force level. But when you look at different areas, look at different neighbourhoods and local authorities, you get a slightly different picture. So it's and that was it was sort of backed up by the findings of the community engagement as part of the police and crime plan.
Okay, so I'll whistle through the others if that's okay. The next one, you mentioned CCTV. We've got Councillor Helen Smith here from Ashfield. As you know, we've been working together on some Safe Streets funding. We're going to have some really exciting CCTV up in Ashfield on Arthwaite Street on New Cross. This is going to be really exciting. It's going to have, as well as the CCTV, so you get a much better image, there's actually going to be an alarm button on there as well where you can get through to the control room. So it's really, really exciting. Wherever we can, we will put bids in for CCTV, but we do need to work in partnership to do that. Volunteers and community speed watch, I'll pass to you in a second. Is that what you can do now, if you go to?
Yeah, we've got a plan. I think it's a good idea, and participation with partners as well. I think add into that the additional resources we've put into roads policing and roads crime. That's coming together.
Yeah, and just to assure you, everything that's in this plan, I've actually spoken with the chief to make sure it's ambitious, but it's deliverable, and the chief is supporting me on this. And thirdly, finally, the city. I did just do one event in the city, Councillor Khan. I would have been happy to do more if there'd been more people turned up to it. But actually, I was confident that people could see it online too, and there was a lot of responses to that. But as well as the specific event, we did do all those thematic ones as well, which were in the city, and spoke with our partners.
Thank you, Commissioner. I've got Councillor Camilleri, Councillor Helen Smith, and then Leslie Dalby in that order. Thank you.
Excellent report. First time. Very good. I'm a little bit concerned about you skirt over this problem. It's been skirted over everywhere. You plan to set up a local criminal justice assurance board to scrutinise the justice system. One of the questions I wanted to answer: who's going to be on that board? The second is: do people really realise how much it costs to keep a young child in custody? I've heard of, I think, Councillor Woolings, is it? I can't. Yeah. She quoted. No. I'm just going to say. Sorry. Oh, okay. Well, it runs into tens of thousands a week to keep a child in custody. So if a court case is adjourned for 3 months, that can be up to £600,000 or whatever it might be, which comes out of not your budget, but the city's budget, the county council's budget. So it's extremely important that we get these cases cleared up, especially in juveniles. It's affecting the victims and even defendants' life. And especially in Mansfield and Ashfield, where we've got high prevalence, we've got a lot of people in custody waiting for sentence or whatever they do. But it's an extremely expensive thing. And I'd just like to know who and what credentials you have to be on this local criminal justice board. And I apologise for Councillor Woolings, I didn't say anything. Okay.
Thank you, Andrew. That was really good points. It's the Criminal Justice Assurance Board, and the reason I want to set it up, I want to know where the pinch points are, what we can do better. Kevin, are you okay to pick up on this, because you've been working closely to get this happening? Thank you.
Oh, it's back on again. Yeah, so typically all the criminal justice partners, magistrates, Crown Court, CPS, probation, all the key actors in the system. So as Commissioner Henry said, can identify those pinch points, and also to make sure that the performance data of that system is transparent locally. Sometimes it's very visible nationally, but not locally. And so through the cooperation and some of the investment that we've talked about earlier, like the diversion plus, hopefully we can have less children going through the system, less children in care, less children locked up. As you say, it's very costly. It's appropriate for some children to be locked up because of the risk that they pose, but generally in the plan, the focus is on prevention and early intervention. But it's all the statutory partners. We've had a regional criminal justice board for some years. This is the first time we've had a local criminal justice board to shine the spotlight of what's happening in Nottinghamshire.
I find it extremely hard to understand, which I do in government sometimes, that Caroline's the police commissioner and responsible for crime and effects of crime and safety and all aspects of crime, except the only area that she has got no impact on is the criminal justice system. And I find that extremely difficult to understand. And I think that you ought to take that higher up to get this change, so you do have some control and some say in what happens.
It's fair to say that the judiciary has tried to have some independence from politicians over the years, in terms of that political interference. But it's not strictly true. The legislation surrounding police and crime commissioners does have a line in there, as well as holding the Chief Constable to account. It also says to provide and ensure an efficient and effective criminal justice system. And the other important factor for commissioners is about speaking up on behalf of victims. And the point that you raised earlier, the Commissioner funds a lot of victim services, whether that's DV or sexual violence and victim care. And you've heard from victim care here in terms of Catch-22. What we're seeing with the delays is those victims are spending longer in those services and compounding the issue, and they can't move on with their lives. So I think it's legitimate for commissioners to speak up on behalf of victims, but also they've got a statutory responsibility for ensuring an efficient and effective system.
Thank you. Councillor Helen Smith and then Leslie Dalby. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I appreciate a little part of my question may have been answered, so forgive me. But section 4.2, but all my questions relate to 4.2. It mentions the public exercise that you've been undertaking. My first point is that 3 of those district areas have mentioned illegal encampments as being part of their priority areas, but I haven't seen any mention within your plan around illegal encampments. So what would your plan be to deal with that is my first question. But my next point is that regarding the public engagement exercise that you did, and we both know that the Ashfield one was extremely disappointing. There was no members of the public there. There was myself, the Chief Exec at ADC, Community Safety Manager, and a couple of police officers. That was it in public, which is a shame. And I know that there was an FOI request around the numbers, and your office stated that the event was viewed 1,320 times on social media as of the 15th of October. But on your own social media, it says that it was viewed 217 times, and 6 of those being live. Why is there a discrepancy in the numbers? That's the first thing that I don't understand. But what lessons have been learned? And do you feel that you've met the statutory obligation to consult in Ashfield? Or do you feel that you could hold it again at another point? Thank you.
Yes, I feel I've met the statutory obligation because people have watched it online, and I learned from it. You know, since then, I'm doing events more online and also going out to events that actually have something happening rather than putting on my own events. But that was really early doors, and people aren't used to the Police and Crime Commissioner going out to Ashfield. They weren't expecting me, and you know, I'm really trying to prioritise what we do there, and I'm really keen to work closely with the council to do that. And it would have been helpful if the council had shared the fact I was doing the event, and I don't think they did, which is disappointing. Okay. I'm not sure about the exact numbers. I'm sorry. You know, if there was an FOI and we put a number there, I'm confident that that number would be correct because we're really careful there. But I want to engage. I want to be out. I want to be listening, and I will keep doing that. And lots of things came out of those public engagement. You know, and I've not covered every single one in the plan, but they will be tackled. Thank you.
Thank you. But Leslie Delby and then Councillor Carlton. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is a short question, Commissioner. It refers to para 8.3 of your report and the provisional key indicators. When will you be in a position to share the list with the panel? And what sort of targets are you going to put around them? Will it be hard targets or other measures?
Thank you very much. Really good question, because I am very competitive and I like numbers. So Dan has been, we've got some targets there. We are going to discuss them with the chief before we do them. We've got a meeting later on today. Do you want to talk more about this?
Yeah, so the key performance indicators have been identified. We know what we'll be measuring. I think one of the challenges this year is that we're coming off the back of kind of the COVID lockdown year and an unnatural and unreliable baseline. So it's there's a question of understanding what will good look like on the back of this extremely low baseline year and understanding what the new norm is. But having sort of sat down with the Commissioner and worked through some of the key measures that we're looking at, the Commissioner has set some sort of very kind of clear, ambitious targets for the period, and I think it's now a matter of sitting down with the Chief Constable to look at what's realistic and what's achievable with the resources that we have available, looking at some of the various factors that are likely to impact on those indicators over the coming years. But we certainly have something in draft form. It's just whether it's just a case now of determining what a realistic ambition will look like over that period. I should also say that underpinning those key performance indicators, because there are only sort of 12 of them, and they alone by no means give you a kind of overview of the entirety of what's being delivered as part of the police and crime plan. There's a much more broader kind of robust performance framework that underpins it. An update of the performance and insight report, which you see in your pack. We have a draft update now, which is structured around the new police and crime plan. There's other indicators. There's other factors that we'll be looking at around audits and inspections and some of the kind of softer qualitative kind of performance measures. It forms part of a much broader piece, which will certainly be in place by the time of the final publication of the plan in January. But
Dan is fantastic with the data, but I'm really clear on what good looks like. I want fewer victims. I want greater trust in our police and confidence, particularly in the rural areas we've spoken about. And I want a really strong victim services support. Not all of those are easy to measure. Easy to measure, but I am competitive, particularly with my regional colleagues. I'll be frank. But nationally, I want to make sure we're in the top quartile. But wherever we can do a really stretching, ambitious. Some things we're at the top with, and I want to make sure we maintain that.
Sorry, may I just another question related to this? Sorry, yeah. Thank you for that. But did you say the final plan's due out in January? So when would we be able to see the targets to give you feedback in line with our statutory requirements?
I believe it's on the work plan for February.
Would this follow the plan going out then? Sorry, Emma.
Yes, yeah. The plan will go out before you see all the deliverables. Yeah.
Thank you. Can I just ask a supplementary question? I appreciate this is a new plan and you're a new commissioner, and I fully respect that. But I guess what I'm asking is, will we be able to see comparative analysis and some of the things, be able to compare where we were and pick up, so that it's not just a total new set of metrics and we can't look back, and I see the Chief Constable smiling, and that we can still see the themes and where we're actually improving on target or where things are falling back. So I'm reassured. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Carlton.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for presenting your plan this afternoon. I have a question picking up a little bit on the sort of the trust element within reporting of crime. One of the biggest things that I hear sort of locally within the Newark Sherwood area from constituents is that why should they report crime when nothing happens? In the sense of how do we break down the apathy on both sides? And I can understand the wider discussions around funding of the police the last 10 years, etc., etc., but more so in the terms of operationally, to allow sort of resources to be deployed appropriately. So I'm just wondering how, and I understand that you want to be the listening, engaging commissioner, and I warmly welcome that, but by the end of your sort of tenure in office, can we have something tangible to say that that's actually helped increase and inform decision making?
Yes, one of the things we want to measure is the trust and confidence in the police, and I want that increasing. And I always get disappointed when I hear that people don't report because they think nothing's going to happen. We've got to change that, because something will happen, and we need to make sure that people do report. And if they don't report, we don't know it's there. So. I also want to make it easier for people to report with online reporting and other things as well.
Thank you. Did you want to come back, Councillor Carpenter? I'm conscious that Councillor Wooding wanted a further question.
Actually, that sort of segues into a question I was actually going to ask under your general performance report, but it kind of follows on from Councillor Carlton's report anyway. And that is to do with, and it also kind of ties into Leslie's question about stats as well, because the interesting thing is, if you're going to increase confidence in the police, it means an increase in reporting, which means an increase in victims. So you can't, in a way, it's kind of saying if you want to reduce victims, actually encouraging people to report stuff to the police, you will automatically see an increase in crime figures coming through. And that was always previously presented as a good thing, in that people were having the confidence to actually report things to the police. It's a bit frustrating for us as the panel, because when you see an increase in a specific type of crime, like hate crime, are you saying that's an increase in police, or are you actually saying that's an increase in hate crime? So I just think that that's really what we want to get to in relation to meaningful statistics gathered and targets as well, as far as those crimes are concerned. But we've had some serious incidents in Nottingham city centre and in towns across the county as well, and they can have an impact on how safe people feel, and your plan mentions making people feel safer. So I suppose the question going forward is, once, I'm trying not to refer to a specific incident that's recently happened actually, but once an incident's happened, a lot of the feedback that Councillor Edwards, who was at the previous meeting, has actually been out to visit families at the site of a crime this weekend, and very much the feedback he got from them and from the local members of the community as well were, what's the point in reporting things to the police? And so I'm really interested to know exactly how you will go about sort of instilling that confidence. And I think there is something to be said about, for example, if you're reporting a sensitive crime like drug dealing, for example, and this is something your predecessor would have heard me wax lyrical about on several occasions. But if there's an instance like drug dealing, we're trying to encourage members of the public to report drug dealing on their street. But when they send those reports off, they then just get radio silence. And there's probably a really good operational reason as to why they're getting radio silence. But how do they know whether either A, they've been ignored, or B, the information they've given is actually being actively used? And I think there's a real point there about eventually people get tired of reporting things because they just think it goes into a large vacuum and they never hear anything from it again. And, it's very difficult to say to people, well, we think this is like the swan and, the legs are paddling frantically, but you can't see that, but things are definitely happening. We can't give them that confidence either because we don't really get any feedback either. So I think there is a real difficulty there about measuring confidence in the police and giving people the confidence to actually report things through to the police and to keep reporting them through as well. I'm very pleased to see that you're looking at the online reporting. I actually had a go at the online reporting. It's so many different pages that you have to fill in and then change page again, then change page again, then change page again. It's not user-friendly at all. So I'm really pleased that that's being improved to make it easier for people to report stuff online. And I think is that like a national system? I think it is actually, and it's rubbish. It's got to be improved. So I think we'll be really interested to know what you're planning to do with partners and the Chief Constable to help people not only feel safe, but also feel that it is worthwhile to actually pick up the phone or go online and actually report stuff through to the police and to keep on doing it. So, how do you strike that balance between taking the information and dealing with it, but then actually being able to report something back to the people who've actually taken the time and trouble to report an issue in their neighbourhood.
Really good points. Thank you, Councillor Woodings. We need to make sure we have those trusted communicators in our communities, don't we? And I know just last night you actually spoke with Councillor Edwards. You know, we because there has been incidents there, and we do need to make sure that it gets fed back up when appropriate what we are doing. I think that also there has to be a real encouragement if people aren't confident to report stuff publicly, to use Crime Stoppers too. But I'll take on board if you think that people aren't hearing back when they should be. And we could start measuring that. And if it is a trend, I want to know about it.
Thank you very much. I think personally there are examples where you can see either online or in the evening paper often some good news stories issued by Operation Reacher, where they give you clear sort of examples of their achievements, whether that's monetary or people in custody or whatever. So I don't know whether that's a model that some other parts of your empire might be able to emulate.
Yeah. However, they prefer not to publish the really good stories.
You win some, you lose some.
I think it's just getting the balance, isn't it? What we try and do is push as much out as we can to reassure. And in some of the targets and the measures, etc., we want to see more reporting. So child sexual offences, disclosures, all that sort of stuff. We do definitely want to see those figures come up. Same with the hate crime reports as well. But other measures that we've had for years, such as burglary. If you've been burgled, generally you ring the police. If you've had your house burgled, they're easy to measure and they're easy to compare. I think Commissioner's point and Dan's point around the sort of COVID effect, you'll rightly need to see the trend over time. And I think what sometimes gets missed in the mix is that, and it was a bit of a soft launch really with the ONS statistics that came out, and they're not in this pack either, but apart from the City of London, we reduced crime by the largest portion of any force in the country. And in those key crime types where people have always reported, we've seen some of the biggest reductions, particularly around burglary dwelling, and certainly number of knife crimes. We had less knife crime last year, or when the figures were reported, than Derbyshire and Leicestershire, and we had less overall crime for the year than Leicestershire. And considering the area that we police, that's quite a significant achievement.
I think, Chair, it's difficult to compare last year because of COVID and lockdowns, and the streets were empty and there was a drying up of illegal drugs as well. So, but I don't know how I think we should be comparing with 2019 figures, actually. I think that would be really helpful for us.
Sorry, Chair, can I just come in really quick on that point? I won't go into specifics, but the case I've been involved with where a couple were reporting quite regularly incidents of drug dealing directly through to Operation Reacher. When we looked at it, that wasn't being translated as phone calls, incidents on the system. So the property has been dealt with now, but the resident thought, because they weren't getting an email back to say thank you for your email or anything like that. So I think that's the bit that we're talking about. So that they know something's happening because they keep emailing in, but they're not getting any feedback back. So just a thank you for your email, we're looking into it. I know it might take a bit of time, but it just makes them feel like something's happening.
Thank you for that. If there are no further questions, I'll just take you back to where we started in that the two recommendations for paper 5 are contained on page 19. To note and scrutinise, and our duty to scrutinise the Commissioner. Can I put forward those two recommendations to the body of the Kirk? Thank you, thank you. That takes us to item 6, which is the Commissioner's update report. I think pages 49 to 61 are the important matters, and to 75 with the insight report. Following that, there is a whole number of appendices covering revenue position, capital position and decisions in the public interest. So if I can invite the Commissioner to make any opening comment.
Thank you. And the Chief has just pinched my punch. One of my things I was going to really be proud and talk about, which was the ONS figures. Things change so quickly in policing, and actually, just as we've been on now, the UK terror alert's gone up, hasn't it? You know, things change really quickly. So since May, it's been a really busy period, extensive engagement and consultation programme. One of the things I'm really excited about is the Youth Charter, which I've launched with the Violence Reduction Unit. We're calling it Our Youth Charter. It's been absolutely put together with young people about what they want to see in their youth services going forward. We've got a secondment of our temporary assistant chief exec, Sharon, to introduce you to, Sharon Cadell, who's come in to help us. We're relocating to the headquarters. That's early 2022. Should have some good savings from that and be more efficient, and really keen to work at the heart of the police force. I'm aware of time, so if I just go through quickly. My Make Knock Safe Fund, £131,000. It's gone out to 16 different projects all over, which fits in with my priorities of preventing, responding and supporting. I'm delighted that I've been really successful in the funding requests I've been putting into the Home Office. Since the last panel, we've got Worksop South and Sutton and Ashfield, £550,000 for both. I'm also, just since the papers came out, we've also had another successful funding bid, almost £300,000 from the Home Office. Now this excites me. It's funding to improve safety and the feeling of safety in the city's nighttime economy. Absolutely, I've got a zero tolerance approach to violence against women and girls. So we're going to do a new charter, our VOG charter. It'll be safe spaces, more training for nighttime economy staff, more nights of action. There's lots of really good work that come out of that. I think we've also talked on the Youth Endowment Fund, which is custody. Since the last panel, I wasn't able to talk about Newark Police Station because a decision hadn't been made at the last panel. A decision has been made now that we will not be relocating the police station. I'm really keen that we keep that big visible presence in Newark, and I've just got to make the money work, and I'm delighted that the Chief Constable has been so supportive in coming up with a plan B. We've been working together about how to use that building really efficiently and make the money work and watch this space, because we're determined to do that between us. So, bit of a whistle stop, but I'm really happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor McRae, thank you.
Thank you. Right. In recent weeks, Nottinghamshire has been the centre of national media coverage around a surge in alleged spiking offences at local pubs and clubs. Can you tell us how you're working with partners and how you're holding the Chief Constable to account to ensure this type of incident is addressed? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McRae. I've never had as many media requests as I have done since this whole spiking incidents. And I was really careful, actually. I did a tiny amount of media, but I didn't really want to put up any oil on the fire, because I want people to know what a safe place Nottingham City is to come for a night out. Operation Windblown was the name of the operation that was very quickly put together. They took this really seriously in Nottinghamshire Police, and actually other police forces have been watching what we're doing because we're all over it. Operationally, is it okay if I go over to you, Craig?
Yeah, Rich, dedicated operation. They all go to one SIO from the city. We've got a good arrangement in place with our triage car, with the nurse and the officer in as well. Some good arrangements with QMC, and also a bit of a deal with regards to samples being turned round, etc. We've done some good preventative work with the clubs in and around the city. I know the Commissioners had a representative on the Gold Group as well, which we run operationally, and there's been some additional consideration of funding for preventative measures such as wands and knife arches, etc., to try and obviously prevent these things from happening. The investigations are all active. You are right with regard to the word alleged. We're taking all these seriously. We're documenting them. We're looking for any trends. We have made some arrests, but at the moment those people remain on bail, and we have a dedicated operational response to it.
Did you want to come back, Councillor?
Just quickly, I mean, I spent 13 years as a doorman in Nottingham. It was bouncer when I did it. I know you're not supposed to say that now, but it was bouncers when I did it. Well, some of that training and stuff that you mentioned, that's going to be going to those guys as well. Because I know when I did it, you just got a badge stuck outside the pub door. And I remember my first night on the door, I was scared to death. I just guarding some toilets. I ended up working my way up and I was at head doorman, which was pretty cool. But the training was rubbish. So I really hope it's a lot better. It's a long time since I've done it, and it does sound like that's what you're going to be getting involved with. So thank you.
We are definitely getting involved with training. We already have done some, haven't we? But actually, the new funding we've got, the SWAN funding, that will help there too. There's going to be a really strategic package in place.
Thank you very much. Councillor Khan and then Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Mine was just, I've been having weekly meetings or quick catch-up with Superintendent Catherine Craner, because we're on the same floor in Byron House when I go in. And it's really reassuring of telling us what the police are doing in tackling this. But she also told me about what Devon and Cornwall police have been doing with the whole sampling of how we can learn from other forces as well. I think that's really important. And also just about, I kind of asked her about the alleged biking incidences, but also saying, have there been other incidents reoccurring? And she reassured me that there weren't. So I just wanted to just make that point.
I would like to thank Chief Inspector Catherine Craner, because she's been really responsive and done a fantastic job on this operation. With regard to Devon and Cornwall, Alison Hernandez is the PCC down there, have been speaking with her, and actually we bought some kits which was first available in Devon and Cornwall, which are to test urine. So straight away, the police officers, as soon as something's reported, can test to see if there has been any spiking going off, and I actually used my funding to get those in quickly. And that was learned from Devon and Cornwall.
Councillor Smith, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions. Did you want me to take them all together or separately? All together, okay. So, Commissioner, my first question relates to a report that notes the increase of percentage hours of lost in sickness in the last quarter. I was wondering, there's also been an increase in assault on police officers. I know there was quite a nasty one last week before in Hucknall, where 3 officers were injured. So, first of all, my best wishes go out to the officers that were involved in that incident, because I know it was quite serious. But is there a direct link between the two, the number of the assaults on officers, and is that why the sickness is increasing, or is it COVID related, or is there any particular reasons? So that would be my first question, then I'll come back for my second one.
The abstraction rates in Nottinghamshire through the whole of the COVID pandemic have been really low, and actually I can't remember the numbers, but better than the national trends. I think unfortunately, since hospitals are now opening to deal with things that they weren't dealing with before, some more serious illnesses have been found. So I think that is the reason for some of the higher sickness, that things weren't being treated before. But I will pass over to the Chief, particularly when it comes to assaults, which I want everybody to record. Thank you.
So I'd agree with that. Yeah, the abstraction rates during COVID were some of the lowest we've ever experienced. But what we have found is, as the NHS has opened back up, very sadly, some members of staff have, been diagnosed with some really difficult conditions, and we've lost some members of staff as well. There's no relationship whatsoever between the first bit and the second bit. So what we've seen really is sort of post-COVID, the number of officers and staff that have been in touch with people that have had COVID obviously has increased, even though you're sort of double jabbed. And the other aspect with regards to assaults is we've got a very big push on recording the assaults. And that's so that we can obviously make sure we put the best welfare provision in place, etc., but also that we can try and promote the right outcome when it gets to court. So you will have seen and read, and I do on a daily basis, we do about a number of assaults that in our day would never have been reported or recorded. It was just part of the job, but we've got a tolerance which we've reduced, and we're saying quite deliberately it's not acceptable for any emergency worker to be assaulted. We want it recorded, and we're going to take some action.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think, and I don't know if people have seen it, but there's Police Code Zero that I've seen you on, Chief. So that has brought a lot to light, and I think that's a good thing because it's encouraging other officers to report incidents as well. Chair, I'll just go on to my next point and question. It's in relation to the Safer Streets Fund, which, you know, is absolutely fantastic. And as part of that, partnership is a big part of the thread of a lot of your reports, and I really welcome multi-agency partnership, working across Nottinghamshire. The work that comes out of the Ashfield Hub, some of that is absolutely fantastic, it's amazing. But that's a big part of how we managed to secure some of this Safe Streets funding. I know one of my officers, I won't name him because he'll get all embarrassed, but he actually cancelled leave to work on the Safer Streets Fund. And Commissioner, I will say he was slightly disheartened when the first he heard about us securing the funding was through social media. And so I would say that, like I say, it is fantastic and I really welcome this money. But do you agree with me that it would have been better if the councils had been notified officially before it was released on social media? Thank you.
I thought you were notified. I'll look into that. And you saw when we put a press release out, we always make sure we go to for a comment. And I'm really keen that we carry on with this really good partnership arrangement.
Yeah, the first, my community safety manager heard about it was when I contacted him to say, what's this I've just seen on social media?
I was very excited. Oh.
Thank you for that. Are there any further questions on the report? Yes, Mrs. Dalby, thank you.
Sorry, to come back to the issue of Newark, could you talk us through the evidence-based data that you used to make your decision to keep the office open, or the station open, sorry?
Charlie, do you want to talk about numbers or not? It's tricky, isn't it? Because we're in negotiations at the moment, and I've got to make the money work.
But no, it was, what data did you use to decide to keep the station open?
Huge public consultation, massive survey. Every conversation I've been having, and it was overwhelmingly 80% of the public wanted us to keep the station open.
But it's a little bit like Marks and Spencer's, isn't it, where there's closing down, and as soon as they've closed down, people say, oh, I wish you'd have kept it open, but they never used it. So, you know, but although people may want to have this station kept open, what was the data that you thought, yes, it's worthwhile keeping it open, rather than just people saying, I want it open?
There's the public opinion, but also I've got to make the money work, and it's difficult to go into specifics of the money because we are in negotiations at the moment. But I know what the site cost when it was bought in 2007. I know what it was going to be potentially sold at. I know how much it would cost us to put a new police station there, even though we would have got a bit of help with that. So when you add that money up, I wanted to make sure it made a good fiscal decision. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. So let me just understand what I think is your answer to the question, and correct me if I'm wrong. Your decision has been a fiscal decision rather than an operational, and a public opinion and a fiscal decision. Is that's what you're saying?
I'm very clear that operational decisions are the chief's, but my role is to make the money work with our estates, and that's what I'm determined to do. here in Newark.
Does that answer your question?
No. Sorry. Yeah.
I was going to say, thank you, Chairman. Probably no prizes for the question I'm about to ask. Obviously, you intimated in the delivery of the report that there's a plan B, I understand, and probably, I guess, is going to answer some of the question I'm about to ask. Is it possible to inform this panel what plan B is, or what it looks like, or perhaps a little flavour?
Not while I'm negotiating. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Councillor Khan, do you want to come in on the same issue? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So my understanding is a decision's being made before you've made the numbers work. Is that what I'm hearing? Sorry.
No. I know what the proposal was, and I know what I think I can get the numbers to be, and I'm confident it'll be a really sound financial decision.
Okay, then just to say, you said 80% respondents out of how much? So if the population is so much, then you've had a response by a certain amount. So it's 80%
I mean, there was over 1,000 people who actually did the survey, but as well as that, there's been the focus groups, there's been all the conversations, all the comments on social media, all the letters, all the emails. It wasn't close. It was 80% strongly wanted to keep the police station where it was.
Okay, so you're saying 80% of the people that responded, not 80% of the population of the area, no? Right, okay. And then, so you're trying to assure us that you can show value for money, because there must have been a reason why the Chief Constable, put it forward to say it needs to close, because he thought the numbers were adding up because of the cost of running it and the usage, because we've seen lots of police stations close, and that's across Nottinghamshire, whether that's the city or the county. So how is this different? And also, it's just going forward, how will we be reassured? Because for me now, if we're going to say one police station has to close, all we know we need to do is put lots of responses in, and then the Commissioner will change her mind based on that. So, or if we can say we can make the numbers work, how can we have that kind of assurance that what we do is for the right reasons and not because it's a manifesto pledge or a commitment that you'd review something?
I'm never going to do something if it's just a manifesto pledge, if it's the wrong thing. I think I've been really honest about the rural crime team, which I was really keen to do. But actually, when I really understand what the issue is, whilst I never promised a rural crime team, people expected it of me, but I'm not doing it because it's not the right thing to do. I will do it, but do the right thing. And an opportunity has arisen that wasn't there originally when the chief made the proposal to relocate the police station. So the situation has genuinely changed.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. I've got a couple of councillors who want to come in, but just before handing over to them, because I'm sure it's probably on the same topic, do you have a timescale of when these obviously delicate negotiations are going to be completed? That's my first question. And the second question would be, would that be possible for you to inform the panel of the outcome as soon as it's possibly known? And then I'll hand over to colleagues.
Thank you. The Chief's doing some brilliant negotiating. Can I pass over?
Yes, I think it would be sensible. Obviously, there's some commercial interest at play, but I think what you're trying to get at, and what I think would be reasonable to say, is we've had a number of conversations with a public sector partner, and those conversations, as soon as they're concluded, obviously I have to do a report for the Commissioner, and then you can politely ask for a report to come back to the panel, and that's the way the governance works.
Councillor Greaves, I think you wanted to come in, and also Councillor Camilleri. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, obviously negotiations are moving forward, but I'm still bemused with the building being like half empty and how that is going to affect the running of the building itself, because obviously you must have something, not wanting to press you, but obviously you must have some idea what you're going to do with the rest of the building that's empty. So I look forward to that, because we had a similar thing in Worksop, you know. I know you said we've got a police station. No, we haven't. We've got a slot in the council building, a little desk. And I don't think that's at all appropriate where it is in the council building. But we had a police station. And there again, that was a large building, and there were a lot of spare capacity in that building. And there were police officers rattling about in the great big building that was half empty. So I see the rationale with that. But it'll be very interesting to see what you do with this building and the other part of it that remains empty. So I'll look forward to the report. Thank you, Chair.
And Councillor Camilleri, thank you.
Well, I'm interested in some of the discussion about this, because if you put out to any resident in any town in Nottinghamshire whether they want to keep the police station open or not, they will vote to keep it open. And if you put that vote to me, you've had your say. If you put that vote to me, I would probably vote the same. Why would you want somebody arrested in Newark to be taken to Mansfield? Why would you? It doesn't make sense to me. That's one of the arguments. So the things, and the other thing about empty offices, what you're going to do with Bassett Law District Council, because that'll be half empty now. I shouldn't think there are any people in the offices. They're all working from home. So are you thinking about moving that then? Right. So there were these empty offices. I trust in the police commissioner to find a good use for that. For that police station. It's a brand new, it's quite new, it's got all the facilities. And the other thing is, if they shut it down, I'm not sure about this, but I think you'd have to move into a council office as well in Newark. And I think that's right, that's the thing. And I think by keeping it open, you've probably gone along with the majority of people in Newark.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to come back on the same issue, because you'll appreciate this. You've had the professional advice of the Chief Constable, you've had a partnership arrangement with Newark and Sherwood, and you've gone against both of them. So as a panel, we're interested to understand and explore that in a bit more detail. And I think the view that, as members have said, there's plenty of police stations being closed over the last decade, and lots of everywhere people would have objected to that. So we'd like to understand a bit more about your thinking, why you went against the operational views of the Chief Constable and the partnership arrangement that had been signed up.
The situation has changed. There is an opportunity to work with a partner and make really good use of that police station. And I do think the public have a right to have a consultation if we are going to do something that's radically going to change how they feel about policing in their area. We've talked about the importance of the public having confidence in the police, and they need to know that the Police and Crime Commission is going to be listening to them. And I will make the money work. I'm determined to make the money work.
Thank you, colleagues. Is there any further questions on this particular topic, or indeed on the whole report? I think we've agreed with the Commissioner a way forward in terms of receiving a report, and we understand and sympathise. Certainly when you're in the middle of commercial negotiations, it is very difficult to perhaps give a fuller response than you might do if you weren't obviously trying to negotiate a best deal, a best and final offer with someone probably. So we thank you for that. Members, there are two recommendations for this report. Again, it's a scrutinise and note. I think we've done a fair amount of that in this particular case. So can I again put those two recommendations to members? Thank you. Thank you. Everyone agreed. This is where the independent members have to depart, but in doing so, before I do go, may I just recommend to you and thank our colleagues in the Democratic Services and the Marketing and Publishing Department. Thank you for a very excellent annual report, and there are plenty of copies. I wouldn't have a chance to do that before I depart, but thank you very much. We will now all leave, and I'll hand you over in the capable hands of our Vice Chair, Councillor Ellis, and I think also some of your yourselves will want to leave for this, and so we'll just disrupt it for a few minutes and hand over to everyone.
Thank you for those that came to the visited us at the new custody suite.
I'm afraid
it's a bit busier down there now, but you'd still be very you'd still be very welcome if you wanted to organise a visit.
I would really, Chief Constable was escorting me there. I would really. That never happens.
Yeah. I would really love to extend a visit to come and see our new Forces headquarters and perhaps have a mince pie at the same time. If we can get some dates in there, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Can leave quietly, so we won't hang on to it. It's got all the data to reassemble. So item 7 on the agenda is the question of the appointment or reappointment of independent co-opted members. I think the report's fairly self-explanatory. We have 4 independent members, and we had a recruitment process in 2018, and I vividly remember how cold we were in the Civic Suite. It was about this time of year. It was bitter cold, but we went through a full process, and doesn't matter. And we appointed the 4, reappointed 3 of them, and appointed an additional 1, and we appointed them until May 2021, wasn't it? And then we extended it to next. I get the years wrong. We extended it until May 2022. The report sets out options. We could extend the term of office. We could go through a recruitment process, or some hybrid. Interested in your views, Councillor Smith. You have something to say?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've been thinking about this, and in the current climate, there's potential changes coming to the Office of the PCC, and I think for continuity and stability, I would propose that we extend the independent co-opted members for a period of 2 years. Thank you.
That's 2 years from next May to May 2024. Yeah. Is that Councillor English? Anyone to comment on that? Councillor Woodings?
Yes, I would just say that I feel that the 4 independent members are very highly engaged and active independent members of the Police and Crime Commissioners Scrutiny Panel. And I think they come from a really great set of different backgrounds and perspectives as well. And so I do support them being asked to carry on for a further 2 years if they're able to from March next year, particularly in light of the fact that we know there's this review and change coming down the line. It seems it wouldn't be right to put a brand new person on the committee and then have that person have to stand down after a very short period of time. I think we should wait and see what's happening nationally over the panels generally. And I do agree that that sort of like continuity of knowledge is massively beneficial to this committee. So I support Councillor Smith's proposal.
Thank you. So we have a proposal that we extend the term of office for 2 years until May 2024. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's unanimous. Right. Thank you all very much. And now we declare the meeting properly closed. Thank you.